Welcome, listener, in the shadows. We bring stories into the light. Join me as we explore the encounters no one speaks of and the things that watch from the dark. The silent howl. I've always believed that the woods have a voice. As a child, I used to sit on my grandfather's porch, listening to the way the wind moved through the pines, how it whispered through the branches like some forgotten language. He used to tell me that the forest wasn't empty, not in the way people thought. It had memory. It had presence. It had watchers. I never knew what he meant by that, not until the night I saw it. It had been years since I last visited the cabin. After my grandfather's passing, life had a way of pulling me away from the things that once anchored me. The woods became a distant memory, a childhood nostalgia tucked away beneath the weight of adulthood. But something about this year, about the way I had begun to feel lost in the chaos of life, called me back. I drove out on an overcast afternoon, the winding road leading me deeper into familiar wilderness. By the time I reached the cabin, dusk had begun to settle. The place was unchanged. Weathered wood, a sagging porch, a lantern that had long since run out of oil but still hung by the door as if waiting for my grandfather to return. I stepped inside, breathing in the scent of old pine and dust. Everything was just as I remembered. His books stacked on the end table, the hunting rifle mounted above the fireplace, the hand-carved chair he always sat in by the window. It was a place frozen in time. For a while, I just sat in silence, letting the past wrap itself around me. But the silence was different now. It wasn't comforting like it used to be. It was deeper, hungrier. That first night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind. It was stronger than I remembered, howling through the trees in a way that almost sounded deliberate, like a voice just at the edge of comprehension. At some point, exhaustion took over and I drifted into uneasy sleep. But not for long. Something woke me, a sound. At first I thought it was an animal, a distant howl perhaps, but as I listened my stomach turned. It wasn't a coyote, it wasn't a wolf, it was wrong. The sound was long and strained, like something mimicking a howl but failing to get it right. It started low and guttural, then rose into something high-pitched and unnatural before cutting off suddenly. I lay still, my breath shallow, straining to hear anything else. The wind had stopped. The woods were holding their breath. I wanted to tell myself it was nothing, a trick of the mind. But then I heard it again, closer. Morning brought no relief. The forest was heavy with an unsettling stillness. The birds were silent. The usual rustling of small creatures in the underbrush was absent. Even the trees seemed motionless, as if waiting. I tried to push the night's events from my mind. It was just the wind, just my imagination. But some part of me, a deeper, primal part, knew better. Still, I forced myself to go about the day as planned. I gathered firewood, checked the well, walked the old trails. But everywhere I went, I felt it. That presence. Not seen, not heard, but felt. By late afternoon, I found myself deeper in the woods than I had intended, following a trail that had become less and less familiar. The trees here were older, twisted, their bark scarred as if something had clawed at them. I should have turned back, but something, curiosity or something more dangerous, kept me moving forward. Then I found the tracks. They were large, too large to belong to any animal I knew. Long, elongated impressions in the damp earth, ending in deep grooves, claw marks. My stomach knotted. The wind shifted and suddenly the air was thick with a scent I recognized instinctively. Rot. The silence pressed down around me. Then a sound. A slow, deliberate scraping, like claws against bark. I turned sharply, my pulse hammering. The trees stood empty. Shadows stretched long in the dimming light. But I knew I wasn't alone. Night came too soon. I sat by the fire, trying to shake the unease, but every flicker of movement beyond the tree line made my skin crawl. My grandfather's words came back to me. The forest isn't empty. It has watchers. I didn't sleep. Not really. I drifted in and out of a restless haze, the sounds of the woods creeping in through the walls. Then, around midnight, I heard it again. That howl. But this time, it wasn't distant. It was close, and it wasn't alone. Something moved beyond the trees, a shape just at the edge of the fire's glow. I sat up, my body rigid, every nerve screaming at me to stay still. Then I saw it. A figure, tall and impossibly thin, standing just beyond the clearing. Its limbs were elongated, its body stretched unnaturally, skin pulled tight over its bones like something that had been starved for centuries. And its eyes, they weren't human. They weren't anything. Hollow, endless, devouring. The wind picked up, and with it, a whisper, not a sound, but a voice that pressed against my mind, lost. My breath caught. The thing took a slow step forward, dragging one elongated limb through the dirt with a sound that made my teeth ache. Hungry, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then, as if sensing my terror, it smiled. A slow, unnatural stretch of lips revealing jagged, uneven teeth. Teeth meant for tearing, not chewing. The fire flickered. The wind screamed. And just like that, it was gone. One moment there, the next, nothing but the empty dark, as if it had never been there at all. I left the next morning. I didn't pack, didn't look back. I got in my truck and drove, my hands white-knuckled on the wheel, the road blurring beneath me. I don't know what I saw that night. I don't want to know. But I do know one thing. The forest isn't empty. It never was. And when the wind howls at night, I wonder if it remembers me too. You made it back for now. But the things in the dark never truly leave, do they? They watch, they wait, and perhaps they remember you now too. If you want to hear more, if you dare to listen again, step back into the shadows. Like the video. Subscribe, but know this, some doors once opened do not close so easily.